his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to all. For the opportunity to speak on H.R. 3597, I thank you. It is the Solar Energy Research and Development Act of 2019, also H.R. 3609, the Wind Energy Research and Development Act of 2019, and H.R. 3607, the Fossil Energy Research and Development Act of 2019. On the Science Committee, as my friends on both sides of the aisle here can attest, we pride ourselves on our ability to do great bipartisan work to support the research and development activities that will grow our economy, strengthen our national security, protect our environment, and help maintain U.S. leadership in science and technology. That's why it's unfortunate that we cannot come to an agreement on this legislation today. The three bills we will consider this afternoon are focused on demonstrating energy technologies, many of which are already currently available in the commercial marketplace. And they propose unrealistic budget increases to a number of DOE applied programs. If enacted, these bills could further limit federal investment available for truly innovative, early-stage research that industry cannot undertake. The Solar Energy Research and Development Act authorizes solar energy research conducted by the DOE's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, or EERE. EERE is the largest applied program at the DOE by far and received almost $2.4 billion in funding in 2019. This legislation before us today would authorize approximately $1.5 billion for this work, reaching a 33% total increase in funding from enacted levels by 2024. And while this legislation makes references to, quote, next generation, end quote, solar technologies, and does include authorizations for some critical basic research priorities that I support, like innovative energy storage and advanced computing capabilities, it focuses heavily on expanding the deployment of today's solar technologies. Similarly, the Wind Energy Research and Development Act authorizes wind energy research conducted under EERE and would provide over $570 million for this work. This amounts to a 37% increase from the enacted levels by 2024. And while this legislation addresses some shared priorities like basic research in material science and hybrid energy systems, its primary focus is on reducing, quote, market barriers, end quote, for existing wind technologies. I think I can safely say we all support the incredible growth we've seen in the wind and solar industries in the past decade. Texas leads the nation in wind energy. But American industry is already leading the way on deploying these wind energy technologies. And we won't discover the next game-changing technology by duplicating those efforts. Finally, the Fossil Energy Research and Development Act reauthorizes DOE's Fossil Energy Research and Development FER&D programs and brings total spending in this area to over $1 billion by fiscal year 2024, a 36% increase from enacted levels. And while I'm supportive of funding research to help us better capture, storage, and utilize carbon, this can't be our only goal when it comes to fossil energy technology. This bill's singular focus on emissions control technology ignores the reality of our nation's continued reliance on fossil fuel resources and their role in our clean energy future. Now, let me be clear. I'm supportive of DOE funding for innovative research that will lead to new solar, wind, and fossil energy technologies. But as stewards of taxpayers' resources, we must focus funding on projects that are truly cutting edge, like basic research in advanced computing, advanced manufacturing, and the development of new materials. The fact is, fundamental research often leads to improvements in all forms of energy technologies, and not just ones that get attention from members of Congress. With our national debt at $22 trillion and rising, we simply can't afford to increase spending for every program. So, instead of trying to pick and choose or just setting aspirational spending goals. Let's take the common sense approach. Let's work together to invest in the basic research that we all support. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr.